Well, with reference to certain tips from Dominic O'Brien and to some of the medieval and Greek texts and other sources, you talk about marking every fifth station,
Yep.
and essentially, if I understand it, hanging to the right predominantly, if not completely. This sort of that's how I understood it.
Hanging to the right.
Is there not like an emphasis on every fifth station, and you sort of would start your journey on the right side?
Every fifth. Oh, that just happens to be my history journey. Yes,
Oh,
because I
okay.
back. Uh, a lot of the Greek uh, references recommend marking every fifth and every 10th position. So I always put 5 locations in a room or down a street in order to the next street. So I'll use something. The streets are always every 10th, and every 5th I'll have a bush or something so that I can jump in 5s, and I make sure I never miss any because there's a rhythm to it.
Right.
So yes, I do mark every 5. So in the house, every 5th is a window, every 10th is a door, because I do stack 10 in a room now.
Okay.
So yes, I use that. It happens for my history journey, which I walk out the front door, and if I go one direction, I've got prehistory. I start at 4,500 million years ago and trot right through the Cretaceous and back to 1,000 years ago, 1,000 BC at the front gate, 3,000, because I changed from BC years ago to BC. And then I do the history journey. Now, the history journey goes down the street, round the block, but it also comes back and doubles up. So I'll use the right-hand side for going down, the BC bits, and the left-hand side happens to be 1800s back.
Right.
The really interesting things start to happen because all my ancestors are whacked in the history journey as well. So I've got very few women until we hit the 1800s. Then I suddenly, apart from Queens, Joan of Arc, there's very few women because history didn't record women much. Then I start to get women, and I start to have them chatting to each other. So Emmeline Pankhurst, who's over there at 1858, born, women's rights, universal women's suffrage votes. 10 years later, you've got Gertrude Bell. I don't know if you've heard of her, the archaeologist who did a lot of Arabia. A lot of the stuff in the film Lawrence of Arabia is actually her work, not his. He just took credit, or the writers took credit for it. She worked with him and Winston Churchill. Anyway, she was totally opposed to women getting the vote. And my instant reactions is exactly the same. How can this unbelievably powerful woman in the wars and knowledge of Arabs be opposed? Her argument was that if they are not educated enough to understand the arguments of the politicians, they shouldn't be voting. And it wasn't just women she didn't think should have universal suffrage, it was men as well. Right. And the same argument. So in my brain, they're across opposite sides of the road in my palace. They're arguing across the road, which starts to make me think about these things. And the same argument just came out about the Brexit vote, that in fact the question was too complicated to reduce to a yes-no, and therefore you had a whole lot of people voting on something which they didn't understand the implications, let alone the politicians understanding them. So that's what starts to happen with this lively landscape and characters.